Okay, guys, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to get into this presentation. It's a little long, but it's very entertaining. So this is my presentation for my master's end of program project. It's an evidence-based practice project. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Boo. Okay. Yeah, if you guys see anybody else come in, let me know. So intermittent fasting as applied to weight, this is as applied to weight loss and weight maintenance, okay? But fasting is fantastic for a lot of things, like numerous benefits with fasting. So I'm going to start off by talking about like what the problem is, and this project is geared towards obesity, towards weight loss and weight maintenance. And if you work in the hospital or you're a human being, you know that obesity is a major problem in our society, and that it's causing a lot of disease processes, and it's basically killing people. So I really want to like also preface this with speaking about obesity and being overweight can be very triggering for some people, and this presentation is to present research-based scientific facts, and it is in no way a passment of judgment on anyone for being overweight. This is about health and facts, and so also to put a disclaimer out there, I am not a medical doctor, and this is not to be taken as advice, but it's kind of to give you an information on a tool that you can use that can help you in your life. So this is the class, my school, my email if you guys have any questions, my professor. Ding, ding, ding. Next slide. The next slide is actually what's the purpose. The purpose of this project is to look at research data about fasting for weight loss, to suggest evidence that we can use to guide us in our approach to obesity treatment for ourselves or our patients. There's my driving question. In obese adults, how does intermittent fasting compared to multiple small meals a day affect weight loss and weight maintenance longer term? So currently, like, there's a plethora of information regarding weight loss and weight maintenance, diet and nutrition. It can be very overwhelming and misleading, and the weight loss industry is huge. It's booming, it's growing, and there's a growing body of research that suggests that fasting in different forms is a valid and effective way to treat and manage obesity, as well as many other disease processes, diabetes being a large one. For this reason, the foundation of this project is to evaluate and present valid, peer-reviewed, actual data about fasting, weight loss, and weight maintenance. So what is the problem? Obesity is the problem being addressed in this slide, in this project. I mean, fasting can help with so many other things, but for obesity, that's what this project's about. Hold on, somebody's in the waiting room. See, I don't know how to. Let somebody in. In 2016, the World Health Organization reported that worldwide obesity has tripled since 1975. I think that is a very significant point to make, to notice here. Let's see if I can get out of this. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Let me let this person in here. Okay. So yeah, you see there it also talks about the CDC. The CDC tracks it closely, and those numbers are pretty impressive to me. That in the United States, according to that data collected by the CDC in 2015, no state had an obesity rate below 20%, where just 20 years ago, it said every state had you can read it, had an obesity rate above 20%. So basically, obesity is on the rise and it's becoming worse. Sorry guys. I guess I'm just gonna keep going and not pay attention to the waiting room there. So yeah, here we go. What I was saying there, the CDC tracks data closely. In 2015, no state had an obesity rate below 20%. In 95, no state had an obesity rate above 20%. That's a little confusing, but it's actually a very impressive fact right there. So obesity stresses the body. Obesity is an inflammatory state, and it puts you at risk for these things: diabetes, high blood pressure, dyslipidemia. Things that are a little more surprising, thromboembolism and ischemic heart disease. Also atherosclerosis, or that's damage on the inner lining of your arteries. And metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. So those two things are very similar. And we're going to talk more in this presentation about insulin resistance. Hello. So according to the International Journal of Obesity, it is now well established that more people engage in dieting. Like the more that they diet, the more they'll gain weight. So you can keep trying, but the more likely you are, if you continue restricting calories and going on the evidence that's given to us by our doctors and general practitioners, the more likely it actually is for you to gain weight long term. So also, according to the American Journal of Public Health, this fact right here is very impressive to me. The probability of achieving a normal weight by caloric reduction alone is really low. So what that translates to statistically is there's a 99.2% failure rate. And what this is saying is that if you lose weight by traditional methods and obesity is your problem, and we're talking losing a bunch of weight, 99.2% of the time people regain the weight. So the problem with dieting is that it can work short term. If you've ever tried diets, and people that have done yo-yo dieting or multiple types of diets, it works short term, but it does not work long term. So and the problem with that is we're not addressing the root of the problem, which is that there are so many more factors involved than calories in versus calories out. So what's wrong with the current approach for treating obesity? Well, it is not working. It's not sustainable. It blames the individual. It says that they're not losing weight due to lack of willpower. And basically, it doesn't address timing of eating at all. Research suggests hormones play a larger role in weight loss than we have ever thought before. Let's see. So calorie restriction alone is not enough. So the next slide here is about Jason Fung. And I see somebody else in the waiting room. Hold on, I went too fast. Jason Fung. I'm admitting people to the waiting room. Does anybody know if I can turn the waiting room feature off so that people can come in without me admitting them? Can I like make somebody else a host or something?
I have no idea. You can make someone a co-host.
Make a co-host. Mom, I'm making you a co-host. Can you watch the waiting room? Hello.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Hi. We started the presentation here. Can you guys, am I sharing on my here we go, screen share. Am I can you guys see the presentation?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically I've introduced that the problem at hand that we're speaking about is obesity, and we are talking about how intermittent fasting is effective at treating obesity, and the fact that it is more effective than traditional methods that are being suggested. So Jason Fung is a leading voice in the fasting world. He's all over the place. He has a major clinic, and he also he has online. He's got a very active online clinic where he helps people lose weight. He touts that he can cure diabetes. The example I put there in that slide is that he has talked about more than one case where people had unhealing diabetic foot ulcers that had been debrided and unhealing for like over a year, that he's putting them on these fasting regimens, and these unhealing foot ulcers are going away. Their diabetes are going away. They're coming off of medications. It's just very impressive. And he, the thing that is very interesting is that he's not the only one. He's one of many up-and-coming medical doctors that are implementing fasting with their patients and seeing phenomenal results. So he's using research too. He's not just going off of the seat of his pants. So what I want to do now is show you guys a short video, and this is an interview with Jason Fung that is on NBC. Can you guys see this video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's not playing yet, but.
The question I'm asking is, calories equally fattening? And the answer is no. The calorie of brownies is not the same as a calorie of kale. It's just not. That's just common sense. But yet we try to pretend that they're the same. So if it's not about calories, it's really about our hormonal response to those calories, which is completely different depending on the different foods that we eat. But it depends on a lot of different things. Calories is a very simple measure, and that's really what is appealing about it, because not only does it tie together all different foods in a single measure, but you can also tie in things like exercise, and these sort of things are very appealing to companies that sell sugary beverages, for example. So they can say, okay, if you exercise, then it's okay to drink sugar-sweetened beverages because you've just exercised. There's a fundamental flaw in this whole energy balance equation. The energy balance equation says that body fat equals calories in minus calories out. So what we take from that is that we assume that if we simply reduce the amount of calories we take in, that we're going to reduce our body fat. But that's not actually true. That's not actually what the equation says. So there's actually two parts to it, the calories in and calories out. So the question really is, if you reduce your calories taken in, does your calories that your body expends stay stable? And the answer is no, and we've known this for about 100 years. So you can look at studies done in 1917 where they take volunteers and they reduce the number of calories that they eat by roughly 30%. Then they measure their basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories that they're burning on a day-to-day basis. And what you find is that the body has reduced its energy expenditure by about 30%. So if you're taking 30% less calories in and your body is using 30% less calories, then you're not going to lose any body fat, which was the whole point of the exercise. And this is really the failure of this sort of calories in, calories out model, is that they're not independent variables. The calories in and the calories out are not independent of each other. They go up and down together. So simply focusing in on the calories leads you to fail in your efforts to lose body fat.
All right. So I just thought that that's really important because he makes a point in a way that It takes a lot of talking to get it across. And basically, what he says is that calories in versus calories out is not the only thing that matters in weight loss. And when you decrease your calories, the reason we see that 99.2% regain of weight in patients and people who have lost weight, that's why we see all this yo-yo dieting. That's why we have such a huge market for weight loss supplements and exercise plans and everything else. I'm not discrediting any of that, but that is why it alone is not working. And hormones, there's all of these hormones are involved in maintaining our body weight. Cortisol, we know it as the stress hormone. It increases appetite and possibly food cravings, as it does with other supplements. Cortisol is involved with addiction and craving to drugs and other supplements as well, other things. Ghrelin, some people call it ghrelin because it's a complex hormone. It increases hunger, ghrelin, like stomach growling, and it affects the function of growth hormone. Leptin decreases hunger and increases energy to move, like it decreases your hunger and it makes you want to move more. As it says here, obesity leads to leptin resistance. If the hormone that decreases your hunger when you don't need to eat anymore isn't working properly, that is a major problem. That is a major hormonal problem that fasting can help fix, that regular calories in versus calories out approach to weight loss and weight maintenance cannot fix. Insulin is huge, and we will talk a lot more about insulin. We all know about insulin in relationship to blood sugar, but it also has action on appetite, weight management, and basically, like I was talking about, leptin resistance, insulin resistance is a huge problem. I have more information on insulin resistance. So I'm including this information as ammunition to paint a picture, about the complexity of weight homeostasis, and to highlight that resources, like resource after resource, present supporting information that fasting can help balance these hormones. The calorie in versus calorie out information that Dr. Fung talked about in that video says that when we decrease calories that we're eating over a period of time, we decrease calories that we're burning. And it's by this complex hormonal feedback mechanism. So yeah, fasting can help regulate all of these hormones. And as I said, we're going to talk more about insulin, the actions of insulin. Insulin, not only does it move glucose into the cells from the bloodstream, but it causes uptake of protein synthesis in the muscles. And it promotes fat tissue to uptake as well. So it basically, insulin promotes the storage of fat. And it also inhibits the breakdown of fat. So as an action, as part of its job to balance weight maintenance, homeostasis, it prevents fat from being broken down and it promotes the storage of fat. So having high insulin all the time is difficult, and fasting is a way to help get your insulin level in your blood low, because if your sugar's not up, your insulin's not up. It promotes triglyceride synthesis in the liver, more fat production. Insulin down regulates itself. So this is where this big player of insulin resistance comes in. Too much insulin causes your body to make less insulin. So if you got a lot of insulin in your blood, it triggers the communication to your body, we don't need more insulin. And after a while, your body becomes resistant to that. It just realizes, oh, I don't need all this insulin, so I'm not going to make it. A lot of doctors call insulin resistance basically synonymous with diabetes. So you can be in a state of insulin resistance and you're not technically diabetic, but you can still look like a diabetic, basically. So, moving on. There's a little delay in the slides, and I don't want to go multiple slides forward. I'm going to talk more about insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? Literally, it is a decreased response of target tissues to insulin. So these things that I have up here are ways that insulin resistance presents. I've heard many doctors talk about when you have centralized abdominal obesity, that is almost enough, information to tell them that you have insulin resistance. It can lead to hypertension, dyslipidemia, or unmanaged fats in the blood, too much fat in the blood where it shouldn't be. Abnormal glucose. Well, let me clarify. Fat works in all kinds of good ways in the body. It transports vitamins. It has a lot of good actions, but misbalances can be dangerous. Abnormal glucose intolerance. So again, this has to do with all of these homeostasis things. And then endothelial dysfunction. So that again is the inner lining of the arteries, the endothelium. So I am going to break out of this one more time and show you guys another video because basically insulin resistance causes it to be so difficult to lose weight. And again, Jason Fung knows how to say it in a way that he can tell you in about 2 minutes exactly what I want to tell you. And so I'm going to go over here to this video and play it real quick. If the thunderstorm will let us.
What people need to understand about type 2 diabetes is it's really just an overflow paradigm of sugar. There's just too much sugar in your body. And it's like a suitcase. If you put the first few t-shirts in, then they go into the suitcase no problem. So that's just like the sugar in our body. You put a little sugar in the body, no problem. It handles it fine. Once it's full, you really have a tough time putting in those last 2 t-shirts because it's full. And so you can try and push it down with more force, but it's not easy. And that's the same in our body. So the cell, once it fills up with sugar, just doesn't want any more sugar. So if you take more sugar, it's just going to spill out in the blood. And this is what they call insulin resistance, which is really synonymous with type 2 diabetes. But the problem is not the insulin or something wrong with the cell. The cell is just full. So the insulin, which is trying to move the glucose into the cell, really can't shove any more in. So the solution that we've used as doctors is to give more insulin in a situation where you've already got too much insulin. So you're taking the cell that's full of sugar, and our solution is to cram more sugar into that cell. So the cell goes, whoa, okay. But eventually it fills up again, and then we give even more insulin. So it's just like that suitcase. Once it's full, we try and push it down, and it doesn't go down. So we get a friend to push it down, right? So it's like the 2 of us, and it's like, okay, with the 2 of us, we can push it down. But as you put more t-shirts into it, it gets harder. So then you get a 3rd friend and a 4th friend. And you can see that is not a very good solution. That's exactly what we've done with insulin. So because we're cramming sugar into the cell, we use insulin, then more insulin, then more insulin. And eventually it just gets to the point where it doesn't work anymore. It's like, wouldn't the better solution be to get rid of the sugar in the cell so it's not so overflowing? Same thing in the suitcase. Rather than getting your friend, why don't you just take some of the stuff out? So all you need to do, again, is either 1, not put sugar in, or 2, burn it all off. And it's a natural solution. It's 100% natural. The fasting is something that anybody can do, has been done for thousands of years, and has the potential to reverse the disease where the medications are not going to do anything.
All right. So Jason Fung explains fasting and insulin resistance in a way, and also like the way that we come about treating diabetes in a way that I don't hear other people talking about it. He talks about the fact that with any other branch of science, if something isn't working well, we decide a better way. Like we keep trying, if like Benjamin Franklin was over here attempting to treat diabetes and we saw that giving exogenous insulin and kind of side note of, hey, watch your diet and exercise, but we can always give you more insulin. He would not stop researching at that. He wouldn't just accept, okay, that's the national standard, that's the FDA recommended treatment plan for diabetes. If any prudent scientist in any other field were researching things, but in medicine, we have this weird paradigm where stuff, there's a huge lag, and that's what this project is geared towards, the evidence-based practice, the looking at evidence and basing your practice of how you treat obesity is what this project's about, because we can use fasting as a tool for ourselves and for our patients. And I will talk more about fasting to where it's more digestible for those people who have never fasted. Fasting is very stigmatized in our culture and it's feared, and I'll talk more about that too. But resolving insulin resistance, he talked about it. We can either, I don't talk in this presentation about this, but you can stop eating so much sugar, and sugar can be in the form of carbohydrates too, bread, fruits, breads, sugar, any carbohydrate in excess causes too much sugar in the blood. So fasting is a solution that lets you not be so critical of the food you're intaking. You can eat more of what you'd like to eat and have a longer time of not eating in order to burn that sugar off. That's what he was talking about in that video. So resolving insulin resistance, it's, we hear people talk all the time about balancing hormones, and insulin's a hormone. So resolving insulin resistance is an effective way to treat obesity, and vice versa. Obesity is treated well by decreasing insulin resistance. So fasting is an effective tool. Long-term focus, like this is a big long-term. Most diets work short-term, but you haven't fixed the root of the problem. And we haven't even talked about the psychological factors involved in weight loss and weight maintenance. This is by no means a point of decreasing the importance of that. I'm not trying to downplay the importance of that. I want to add that in here because there are a lot of factors that need to come into play. Like if you've ever had disordered eating or an eating disorder, fasting is still possible, but you really need to seek medical help. You need a doctor or a trained counselor to guide you. And furthermore, anyhow, this is a tool. It's not the magical answer, but it's a tool. Fasting lengthens the space between meals and gives the body time to heal itself. So why is fasting feared? Well, if you look at the history, fasting, we first talked about fasting, and a lot of resources that talk about fasting and downplay, like talk about it being dangerous, talk about your body goes into starvation mode, suggest that we need to eat every 2-3 hours in order to keep our metabolism burning and rev our metabolism. A lot of those people that tout that information, they have gotten it from this study that is it's from 1950, the Minnesota starvation study. Not only is it from 1950, it's like if you look at the details of the research, it's faulty. Like they allowed these people to eat I think it was 500 calories a day, and they in the beginning they even talk in the study about allowing them to chew bubble gum, and some of them were like eating whole packs of bubble gum. And most gum has artificial sweeteners in it, and those things, like there's chemicals can trigger these hormones, and even though it might not have calories, it can trigger the body to think that you're eating something and release insulin and cause this leptin, ghrelin, insulin, all these hormones to be released. So the participants of this study were just on a calorie restricted diet. And the whole argument for fasting states that you have to avoid all caloric intake to enter a fasted state. Eating a small meal cannot be considered a fast, really, because you're turning the body on, you're turning the metabolic processes on. Giving your body a small amount of food starts all the digestive enzymes, and it actually causes all of those hormones cause you to be more hungry. It causes you to be irritable. It causes that hangry. That's where we get this hangry thing. It's where when these hormones are in play and we're dropping the blood sugar fast because we've raised it fast. So, and another thing, by the way, on that note that I didn't write in here about hangry is that generally that feeling is actually more of a withdrawal to sugar. Like even in the distance between two meals, often getting to that point of being hungry, angry is more of a withdrawal to sugar, like it's a drug, because sugar is a psychoactive substance. But back to the topic here, this is another study, the Matador study, minimizing adaptive thermogenesis and deactivating obesity rebound. Obesity rebound meaning you lost weight and now you're gaining it back. So this study took 51 adult men and had half of them lose weight with calorie reduction alone, and the other half include intermittent fasting. They monitored the weight loss. The intervention was over 16 weeks, but then they followed up to a 6-month point. Like this was a pretty big study compared to the amount of research out there on intermittent fasting. And it says that energy reduction alone decreases resting energy expenditure. So there's a typo in there, but just like Jason Fung said in the video we watched, if you decrease how many calories you eat, but you don't decrease the time period that you're eating in, your body, if you decrease the calories you're eating, your body's gonna, it's smart, it's very smart, it's gonna adjust to that. It's gonna decrease the amount of calories that it burns. It's gonna down regulate. We see this in science, you know? Okay, on to another one of my favorite topics, autophagy or autophagy. Auto meaning self, phagy meaning to eat. So it literally means eating self. Autophagy or autophagy. Autophagy is the body's way of cleaning out damaged cells in order to regenerate newer, healthier cells. So basically, autophagy is a big deal, and the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 was awarded for autophagy. Something I thought was interesting, though, is that the research that this guy, he's a cell biologist, Yoshinori Osumi, the research he did to prove that autophagy was basically, it's our natural cleanup mechanism, and it was done in the 90s. This research isn't new. Just like knowing about insulin resistance isn't new. There's documented research and doctors' information that says it refers to insulin resistance in the 1930s. So insulin resistance isn't new either. And again, insulin resistance is basically diabetes. If you aren't diabetic but you're insulin resistant, your body still has a state of hyperinsulinemia or high insulin that leads to or hyperglycemia and dysfunction in all of those hormones. But let me tell you why I think that autophagy is so important, and talking about this here is because what do you think is one of the most effective ways to get into a state of autophagy? Fasting. Fasting increases autophagy. So we aren't even touching the surface of the discussion about fasting. There are so many different kinds of fasting. Fasting is a huge world, and you know, there's prolonged fasting, there's different types of fasting, and we'll talk about that later, but this one is a little more scientific. The cellular and molecular mechanisms by which IF or intermittent fasting improves health and counteracts disease processes involves activation of adaptive cellular response. Basically, this is saying what I said. There's a pathway of hormones that act on the cells intracellularly, and intermittent fasting can activate and it can balance that out and enhance mitochondrial health, DNA repair, and autophagy. PF is prolonged fasting, also promotes stem cell-based regeneration. It has been noted in multiple different research studies that prolonged fasting can increase the production of stem cells. If you guys know anything about stem cells, you know that stem cells are new cells that can be formed to anything they go to. Like, you can inject stem cells into an arthritic knee and improved the joint cells can repair and improve the knee tissue. You can inject stem cells into a petri dish with like heart cells, and you can regenerate cardiac tissue. Stem cells are like very malleable. They can become anything, and we can make our own. Like, we can increase the ones we already have. More about fasting and autophagy. Fasting is actually far more beneficial than just stimulating autophagy. It does two good things. By stimulating autophagy, we're clearing out all our old junky proteins and cellular parts. And at the same time, fasting also stimulates growth hormone. So it increases energy and it increases muscle production. So it tells our body to start some new snazzy parts from, basically, the way I've heard that this thing described that really helps me understand it is autophagy is a natural state. We have cells in our body that have a short lifespan, and those cells die, and then we excrete them. But autophagy increases our ability to take those cells and recycle their materials and be more efficient at the process that we're doing. And the other thing is, if our body is not having to constantly focus on burning food, digesting food, processing glucose, taking on the burden of being in a fed state, we don't have time to go out there and find all the little problems to work on. I didn't even get into the fact that there are articles and people's experiences who have fasted and decreased tumor size. You can look it up. Fasting decreases tumor size. I mean, prolonged fasting has even been proven in situations to decrease cancerous tumor sizes. So I'm not going into all that. But next, we're going to talk about, how does this thing work? Fat versus glucose for fuel. We've always been told that you need sugar, you need glucose. And the newer research says that really you can use fat for fuel. And when we are processing all of the food that we have in our body, we've managed all of that glucose, that's when we are able to start burning fat. And that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about burning fat. We're talking about obesity, fixing obesity, using intermittent fasting to fix obesity. So research says that despite these old beliefs that we can use fat for fuel, and ketones are how it works. Ketones, they're acids actually, and they're chemicals that your liver makes when there's not enough glucose for fuel. And it's been found now that ketones are very effective. Ketones they cause you to have improved energy and decreased brain fog, and they're actually very effective. So ketones can definitely be used for fuel. So this is, when we are fasting, we are actually using a fat for fuel instead of a glucose for fuel state. Fat for fuel and intermittent fasting is the next slide when it comes up. Intermittent fasting is a term that's used, to describe a variety of eating patterns in which no or few calories are consumed for time periods that can range from 12 hours to several days. The metabolic switch, and by that I mean switching from a glucose burning state to a fat burning state, usually occurs between 12 and 36 hours. To me, this is really important information, because this makes it like not just some research project that I'm reading off facts about. This gives you information about the fact that this is how long it takes to get into a place where you have increased the autophagy, which means you are in a natural state of detox, which, by the way, means you don't need to spend any money on any supplement or anything to detox. Just fasting alone, there are other things that can help, but fasting alone is a serious way to detox on your own. So 12 to 36 hours. That's what the research says. After stopping food consumption, and the reason it's a range like that is because of the liver stores glycogen, and glycogen is something that can be converted to glucose in the absence of glucose. So if you don't have glucose in your bloodstream, glycogen can be used for fuel. So once you burn through those the glycogen can also be stored in is also stored in your muscles. So once you burn through that glycogen, you start burning fat. Okay, so the amount of energy, and also if you're exercising a lot, you're going to be burning through it faster. You're going to get into that autophagy faster. And I also want to mention that autophagy, like I was saying, happens all the time. Fasting just up-regulates it, increases how much autophagy. It's kind of like a spectrum. And yeah, next slide. Intermittent fasting for weight loss is an evidence-based practice. So what I am doing here is reeling us back into the topic. Okay, we talked about hormones. We talked a lot about insulin. Insulin's a hormone. We talked about insulin resistance. We talked about the way hormones cause a weight homeostasis. They tell our body, you need more food, get hungrier, you've got too much food, don't be hungry. And how being in an overfed, obese, diseased state causes a disruption in those hormones. It causes them to not work right. And again, the point here is that is why the way that we suggest right now people to lose weight is not working. We suggest for people to eat less and move more. Eat multiple small meals a day. Woo! If you are eating multiple small meals a day, you're keeping your glucose high all the time. Every time you ingest glucose in any form of food, your glucose goes up. Your insulin, at least your insulin goes up. Your insulin is released, there's an insulin spike, and that causes the likelihood of you to enter a state of insulin resistance. So to reeling it back into the point here, fasting is evidence-based, and we can suggest fasting to our patients, to our friends, and we can use it for ourselves as well. Now, it's also, just a side note, not only beneficial for weight loss and weight maintenance. You can also use it for anything else. If you've just been eating too much and you want to clean out your body, if you've got skin issues, if any tissue in your body that needs repaired, autophagy is like the natural detox. So you can use fasting for anything. It does not have to just be weight loss and weight maintenance. So how to start fasting? How do we suggest this to our patients? How do we suggest this to our friends? Fasting is free, and basically all you have to do is not eat. But the big question here, and you guys will want to do more research on this because you'll have a million questions if you decide to try fasting, is what can you eat? What can you drink? The answer does vary a lot based off of what the opinion of the resource that you're reading or watching. But really, the thing is like, try to nothing. Like, water alone is the best, but carbonated water, small amounts of lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, black coffee, teas, and some people believe plain broths are okay. These things can really get you through a fast. And also, for my people out there who have done over 24-hour fasts with me or with themselves, you know that after about 24 hours, it's usually a lot easier. Your hunger goes down, especially if you have a lot of body fat, okay? Prolonged fasting is important for people, for weight loss. It's a strong tool. Okay. As is often suggested in medicine and other therapies, Start low and go slow, okay? You can start by just waiting longer to eat after you wake up, and by not eating like right when you wake up, because remember, when you're sleeping, you are fasting. And as mentioned above, fasting is vast and variable. So there's all different kinds of fasting. Intermittent fasting, you can alter this to fit your life, depending on your work, your sleep. You can fit fasting into your life. And it's funny, the people that I watch that have been fasting for a while, anytime they have big project or big test or big something to do, they don't want to eat. They want to fast, because I skipped this one. Fasting creates more energy. Like it sounds crazy if you've never tried it, but it actually increases your energy levels. And there will be dips if you're doing longer fasts, but intermittent fasting is what we're talking about, really. More on how to get started, listen to your body, go to your doctor, get a physical done, get labs drawn, set yourself some goals. Another thing you will see with intermittent fasting is people's vital signs, their lab work, it normalizes. Not only does your blood pressure, your body weight normalize, your blood pressure tends to get better, you lose weight, your lipids tend to get better, your cholesterol levels tend to get better. It's just overall impressive. Your liver function can improve, because when you go into autophagy, your body is healing your organs. Your body is creating a homeostasis, a balance. So, and I put some stuff in there about mind work, because it's really important. A massive amount of resources out there. There's podcasts, there's YouTube videos, there's books, and then also just be very kind to yourself. Fasting is a tool, okay? Like I said before, it's not a magical cure-all, but once you get into it and you start seeing the benefits, you might start thinking it is, because fasting is not new. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, talked about fasting. Benjamin Franklin talked about fasting. So many people throughout time talked about fasting. I thought I had a slide about that, but I clearly didn't. And then, like anything else, when you are in the process of meeting your goals, praise your small successes. If you just think about it a little differently, you close your eating window a little bit. That also helps. So you don't have to think about it as all these hours you can't eat. What you can think about is like, ooh, I can eat all these hours. You can start with like an 8-hour eating window. The truth is, most Americans eat in like 10 to 12-hour windows. They're eating most of the day. They're eating every 2 to 3 hours. They're eating in excess, and their body never gets a break. So another thing, and I'm going to reiterate this with this slide up about alternate day fasting, is 99.2% of people that are successful at losing weight with the calories in, calories out method alone, they regain it, 99.2%. I do think that statistic is probably skewed by the other psychological factors that we talked about. Weight can be strongly tied into like reward, punishment, body weight. It's very social. Everywhere you go, there's food. If you don't eat, people want to feed you. Food is love. I've talked about this on other topics, but this is just another type of fasting that a lot of people, once you get into fasting, find helpful. Alternate day fasting. Basically, you literally you eat every other day. And the thing that people find is that when, instead of what research says, is if you're eating every other day instead of eating less calories every day, you're less likely to like fail and give it all up. Because when you're eating small amounts of calories every day, you're continually hungry, you're moody, you want more food, and the other thing is like, if you lose weight successfully, as soon as you start eating somewhat more normal for you again, in a not restrictive way, you gain the weight back. So alternate day fasting. I've tried this. I know people who have tried this, and it's very helpful and effective. And here's some research information. This study is it was the first randomized trial comparing alternate day fasting with this moderate daily calorie reduction that I talked about. And it resulted in results suggest 0-calorie alternate day fasting is safe and tolerable, and it's equivalent to moderate calorie restriction in producing short-term weight loss and improving body composition and metabolic parameters. So on the short term, they did an 8-week study. They both lost the weight the same way. But at the follow-up, like up to 24 weeks out, the people who did alternate day fasting had higher weight loss maintenance. So this is one of the strong research studies that reinforce, and there's a lot of information out there that reinforces the fact that losing weight with fasting and integrating fasting as a tool into your lifestyle is more effective at long-term weight loss, at balancing hormones, at creating a state of homeostasis in your body, at increasing autophagy. Take home message, y'all, we're almost done. You guys have made it to the end, some of y'all. Obesity is a problem. Come back, unless y'all want to just read through these resources. Obesity leads to insulin resistance, diabetes, heart disease, and other fatal problems. It's a state of dis-ease in the body. Current dietary recommendations, the calories in versus calories out method, disregard the importance of hormonal balance in weight loss and weight maintenance. It doesn't even address the fact that your metabolism actually slows down when you are eating a reduced amount of calories all the time, which is really funny because a lot of the people that don't believe in fasting and that talk about fasting in a negative way say that fasting puts you into a state of starvation, which is also why I was scared to try fasting in the beginning, because I've always heard that you will go into starvation mode if you don't eat enough often. And let me add here also that, like that video we watched with Jason Fung, this is really tied into advertising. The calories in, calories out is based off of a scientific, non-biological scientific theory. Like I was talking about before, any other good scientist, if the theory wasn't working, would keep researching it. Fasting is also, it's been around for thousands of years. It goes back through like all cultures and all religions, thousands of years. I mean, this is not a fad. This is not a fad. It's actually a natural state. It's a natural thing that our bodies are capable of doing in order to keep things balanced. So fasting regulates blood glucose, insulin, and other hormones and allows the body to reset its apostat. The apostat is the thermometer for weight, our weight set point. It's in our brain, and it regulates the release of these hormones that I'm talking about: the ghrelin, the leptin, the cortisol, the insulin. And fasting is a natural state. It's not starvation. Fasting increases energy and growth hormone. Growth hormone increases by extreme amounts. I didn't get the number here, but it's massive. It's like more than 100%. Fasting is evidence-based best practice and should be used for weight loss and weight maintenance. It's a tool. It's not a magical answer, but it is a tool. And I have a ton of references. If anybody wants me to email them this presentation, like I said, I did record this. I might re-record it without all of the stumbling over things. But yeah, if anybody wants me to send them the handout that I'm making, it's kind of like a poster that has the hot points, the resources. It'll have YouTube videos, it'll have books. Just put your email in the comments there and I'll send it to you. And other than that, thank you all for coming, unless anybody has questions.
I have a quick question, actually.
Yes.
So I've been doing the intermittent fasting for like 5 days now, and I drink a coffee every morning, and I like put it on MyFitnessPal, and it's 5 calories, and I wasn't sure if that breaks my fast or not.
Do you drink, is it black coffee? Do you put anything in it?
I don't put anything in it. It's just a K cup.
Yeah, most people, like most everybody I've looked into in the like 5+ years I've been looking into fasting, they don't think that black coffee breaks the fast. And a lot of people that do fasting, they really lean on black coffee. But if you dig deep, you will find a lot of people that say that because of the caffeine, that it can cause a minor spike in insulin. You can get really nitty gritty about the details, but what I think is, if that cup of coffee gets you through the day and gets you through your hours, and it's
Right.
5 calories, I personally drink black coffee when I'm fasting. Unless I'm
Okay.
drinking like a whole pot, I don't find it to be a problem.
What about like multivitamins and stuff? Do those count as
What I always say, I don't believe they break your fast, and in all the research and the things I've seen people talking, I don't believe they do, but it can make you feel nauseated. That's the one thing I warn against. Like I take all my vitamins with a meal. You know, anything I'm gonna take, I just take it when I do eat. So on those days where I go into 2, 3, 4, go into extended fasting, I don't take the vitamins because I'm already I'm trying to balance my stomach, you know. So yeah, but I don't think that it breaks the fast unless it's the gummies, like the gummy vitamins with the sugar in it.
right? No, it's not those.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Are you did you find the link from Facebook, or are you, Stephen, are you
No,
from Tallahassee,
Miss
or
G sent it to me. My
oh, are
birthday.
you one of the 4th semester
Yeah.
students? Okay. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, no
Ethan,
problem.
Nordell, Sydney. Y'all like more of these people than anybody
Hey,
are my
Jessica.
family.
Hey,
um,
Jessica.
I have a poll that I would love if you guys could take. Oh,
Hey, Jessica.
yes.
Can you see Sydney's question on there?
I was just opening it up.
Oh,
Okay, Sydney, I have done extensive research on the breastfeeding, and most resources actually suggest that you do not do intermittent fasting with breastfeeding. So you can do mild, like over 16 hours is the number that I keep finding. So anywhere between 12 and 16 hours is the max that I would do with breastfeeding, just because of the production decrease. It can decrease production. I've had multiple people ask me about that. You're welcome. Sorry I didn't see your question. Okay, I'm going to put a poll up here. It's a short poll. If you guys don't mind, it will help me to collect data for my project.
thank you. It was very informative.
Thank you. Thank you guys for putting up with my troubleshooting back and forth.